entry on your desk. I tried to make it, excuse me, look like parchment paper. I can crumple mine up and make it like that. Right? With my journal entries, like my notebook. It's like my old time parchment paper. So you are just doing 5 journal entries on this page before I take it up. So, you know, we'll do journal entries not every single day, but along the way, let me hit this volume. Anybody recognize that song? I'll show you the video in just a second. This journal entry, you can see there's 2 boxes on the front, 3 boxes on the back. We're going to do 5 warm-ups or 5 journal entries on this page, and then I'll take it up. When we do that 5, I'll give you a new one. So not every single day, and sometimes I'm not even sure what warm-up I'll choose. But once we accomplish 5, I will take it up. Let's say you're absent along the way. Like, oh, this Tuesday you did a journal entry. Where am I going to send you? There it is, Google Classroom, right? Google Classroom is where everything's going to be. And in fact, yesterday's class is on Google Classroom right now. If you paid attention to that, I made a post at the end of yesterday. So my point is, if you miss a day, that includes the journal entry. It's right there on Google Classroom for you. Probably the first slide of the class. Absence equals go to Google Classroom. That's easy. Jamestown Colony notes, just hang on to those, like Paige is mentioning. And then the syllabus, I told you I was going to give you a color copy. You have turned in your black and white copy. I have given you a hole punch color copy. Now, the printer got a little wonky on me. It printed it, or it did it on the short side flip. So if you kind of looks upside down, but it's the syllabus. It's in color. I would like this to be the front page of your U.S. history stuff. So whether that's its own binder, its own folder, or you have a mega binder with all your classes, I want this to be the first page of all your U.S. history stuff. And your notes and your vocab are going to slide behind that, okay? Your binder is something I am going to be periodically checking, so you're going to want to keep up with the things that I hand back to you. You turn it into me for a grade, right? I hand it back to you, which I'm actually about to do on this E Pluribus Unum. It's not trash. It's keep. Anything with a hole punch. Anything ever handed back to you with a hole punch is for keeps, okay? So I want you to keep that in your binder. There will be periodic binder checks. So with that, that's kind of some upfront instructions. I'm going to let you get back to the warm-up. And what I would like you to do, the topic is simply writing the prompt. Right? Use your imagination to make a list of 5 important jobs for settlers to have in order to make a new colony. That's your topic. Date is today's date. Rest of the space is for you to answer that question. 5 important jobs. If you're starting a brand new colony, you might think about it as a town, right? If I'm going to start a brand new town, what jobs do I want to have in it? What jobs would make a town successful? So that's the prompt for right now. This is the video that goes with that music. Some of you might recognize it here in a second. So your topic, 5 important jobs for today. Assignment number 1 is so everyone knows how to turn things in. Got it. Thank you. What movie is this?
I don't think it's a movie. I think it's a show.
It's a movie. It's a classic.
Oh, it's Pocahontas.
It's Pocahontas. Yeah, Pocahontas, John Smith, Jamestown. They're talking about going over to the New World. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm starting us off with some Pocahontas. All right, I am doing that first hand back. First hand back here. This is a keep. It's hole punch, so it's a keep. Start building that history binder right now. Okay. Felix.
Can you go back to the question?
Yes, good idea. There's the question. All right, so I'm gonna give you about 1 more minute to kind of finish your journal prompt. I have handed back E pluribus unum, which is a keep because it's hole punched. I'll take it if a couple of y'all are turning it in right now. And the whole point of the first assignment is to kind of normalize how we turn stuff in, work through any kinks. Some of you thought, oh, I was supposed to keep till Friday. I have understanding. That's why we do a first assignment. Get everybody on the same page. So about 1 more minute. On an advisory day, my watch just went off. On an advisory day, we got to go to the bathroom almost right away. So I hate that. I hate like sitting down and then leaving right away. So let's finish up our prompt. We will do the bathroom because it's our time, and then we'll come back and get after it. We're going to start in town. Just think of a town or 5 jobs. 4 jobs. Basketball. Survive is a good word. If you're starting a colony, you just need some basic survival jobs. Well, no, I am talking to Jamestown, right? You're traveling from the old world to the new world.
And you're gonna follow
What are you gonna do 3 times a day, bro? And I eat.
First, I saw people that way right away. Y'all want reason? Y'all got a reason to show? I would agree with that.
Did you? No, there's been doctors of skill levels across history. Not the modern medicine that we have today, but there have been those who are doctors.
Yeah, I get like double up like 3
What if you're gonna get attacked by some other officer? What might you do? All right, if you got your 5, go ahead and slide on out. If you're still working on it, Mr. Taylor will with you. If you're still working on your 5, I'll stay until we all get what we need to do.
You know how
This is good, but
Hey, Ryan, how you doing? You look so good.
You're describing it. Really no wrong answers. On a warm-up like this, it's to get your brain thinking.
So I'm not gonna put that.
It is that way. Mr. Taylor's down there. Got a couple deep thinkers in here. I'm okay with that.
I need one more.
Y'all don't even like the bathroom break, do you? You don't even want to go to the bathroom. Not without your cell phone anymore. You want more? Walk yourself down Main Street. What kind of businesses are there?
I think I'm fine. Somebody knows how to like do beds. That's the name of the doctor.
That's a different job. That's his own job, yeah. I'd start with your parents' occupation, whatever that is, right?
Medical field.
That's one, it's at least one job, if not two. Are you staying? Is anybody needing to go to the bathroom that's in here? No? Well, okay. Tell Mr. Taylor. You guys already trickling back in? Okay. This works. This works.
Oh, we anything else?
You want a video?
Yo. Stand up right up.
It's been a while. I see.
All right, so that warm up, I know some are still trickling in. That warm up, sometimes we may talk about it right away. Hey, this is your question, let's talk about it. Sometimes I may hold on to it till the middle of our class and I'm gonna make a point. That's what I'm gonna do today. So hang on to your warm up and we will talk about it here in just a few minutes. Keep it on your desk. My Jamestown settler, come on back.
Oh. I'm looking, I was sorry.
In the top.
Might not be able to.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Don't say it.
Who is that?
Oh, I'm trying to get
I
a
thought that
video
was
of
like
everybody.
oh, like Ace video. Ace.
That way if someone's out, I can just send them.
Yeah, he does it every day.
I have links to most of my other classes.
Exactly.
I don't have this. So, it's good way. All right, my friends, here we go. So, again, advisory days, our bathroom time is almost right away, so that's just kind of is what it is. And we're gonna deal with that. Warm-ups in general are designed just to get you thinking, okay? We approached overthinking a little bit. Some of you were getting really, what if? It's just get those gears turning. There's probably not a wrong answer, especially on a question like this, any job under the sun. And so that's the beginning of, warm-up, just to get you thinking. You have accomplished, box number 1 here. You're gonna hang on to this because this is box number 2. And then on the back side, there's 3 boxes, right? So that's gonna make your warm-ups. And, this page will probably last a week. I don't know or 2 weeks. I don't know how many warm-ups we'll do. It won't be every single day. It will be a couple times a week. I said it to some of you that were in here. I'll say it to everyone else that just came in. Sometimes a warm up, I'm gonna have us talk about it right away. Like, okay, so what's your answer? We'll talk about it. Sometimes I might hang on to it till, a little bit further into our class period, try to make a point with it at whatever strategy I'm trying to use in terms of getting your brain flowing. So that's what I'm gonna do today. Hang on to this page, that gray page, just keep it handy because in a few minutes time, I'm gonna be at a point in our class where we're gonna talk about that journal entry. The other page you have in front of you is these notes right here, Jamestown Colony. These are gonna be our notes for the day. Now, how are these quite different than the notes from yesterday? What's different about these? These are fill in the blank. Yesterday was that open box, and I told you write down what's on the screen, summarize my own words. Some students prefer that. Others are like, oh, just give me the word I need to write down. That's what these notes are. I'm going to do both styles of notes across the semester, so it's helping out. If you have a preferred type of note, it's not going to be all one or all the other. Yes, it's fill in the blank, but there is kind of some white space off to the side. If you're a sketcher or a doodler or you want to write extra words, this page is certainly yours to take notes on. But what I am looking for is every single blank to be filled. Every single blank is in my presentation, so every single blank counts as a point in terms of when I actually take a grade on your notes. Should be super easy completion. Stay awake, stay on track. Every word's going to be on the screen, and your notes will be complete. I think you guys are kind of getting a flow for how we do class. It is absolutely okay to chime in, ask a question. What about that? One time I saw, you want to add if you've ever visited a particular place. We're here to have a conversation, all right? Back and forth conversation. So that's what we're going for in class overall. Let's get after this, or briefly. So turning in papers. Some of you, were fuzzy. I know I said usually we're going to turn it in on Friday. But for E pluribus unum, I was trying to get that assignment back from you. I understand some miscommunication. First assignment, what a grade, right? We now understand this opening screen is going to always be kind of what we need to get after for the day. And then we're going to dive into the class. So do pay attention to the opening screen. And if I ever have the box on a chair like this, try to demonstrate. This is the turn-in box, and I'll probably even tape this right there, be like, this is what you're supposed to turn in. Does that make sense? Trying to make it real obvious, just trying to make sure everyone understands. So, E pluribus unum, that's a page that has been turned in, and at this point, it's been handed back to you, except for the two that just handed it to you. It's been handed back to you. It has 3 holes punched in it. What does that mean? That's a key. It's your first assignment. It should be syllabus, E pluribus stacked together. That's what we've got so far, okay? You're going to have a lot of notes and vocab that fall after that. If you are a good organizer, or quite frankly, if you just stay on top of it on a daily basis, one thing at a time, you put your notes in order, and you're going to have the whole story of us, story of our country's history, stacked together based off of the order that you wrote it down, and I handed it back to you. Just put it in your binder. You've got the whole story written down. Come time for exams, you think that might be helpful? Oh man, okay, these 10 notes are what I need to review. Boom. Come time for the end of the semester, the big test. Hey, I got my binder organized. I'm ready to review. I'm ready for this test. So that's what turn backs are looking like. How many of you noticed you got a grade in Infinite Campus these past 2 days, right? Some of you, I love it. Some of you emailed me and said, whoa, I got a 0, and I don't think that's right. I think I turned it in. Some of you are also like, oops, my bad. I did have it in my binder. I love that you are checking your grades. Sometimes I will, if when I grade something, I go through the whole stack of it, and I don't have yours, I'm going to plug in a 0. There may be circumstances. I understand. If you were absent for 3 days and you're still in your 3-day window of turning it in, I'm going to plug in a 0 just to get your attention, to let you know that I don't have it yet. If you're absent and I'm not going to deduct any points, that's fine. It'll become a 100 or whatever it's supposed to be once you turn it in. Or I put in a 0, you get the alert on your phone, and you're like, oh, shoot, yeah, I didn't turn that. Can you still turn it in? You sure, Bob, can. Where? The late box. Okay, from green, late box right there. In fact, I got 1 page in it right now. Student turned something in late. So, boxy noxy. No Usually I'll have you do it. That's the reason it's right there for you to do it, but you handed it to me, I can do that. You can still turn things in late, right? We miss deadlines. It's not the end of the world. Turn it in. I'll address the late box, probably at the end of the week. That's how that's going to roll. So I will plug in a 0. It is not the end of the world. It got your attention. That's good. Let's talk about it. Some of your parents are more involved on your Infinite Campus as well. And if they have a freak out moment over a 0, you just say, hey, Mom, Dad, like I was absent for 3 days. He plugged in a 0. I'm tracking it. All that. I would rather you have your attention than have you stack up 0s and have no idea that you're not even paying attention to your own grades. So does that make sense? Google Classroom. How many of you noticed that I made a post at the end of yesterday? 1 half hand. Allison. Did you know Google Classroom is an app? It is. It's an app on your phone, which is all in the pouches right now. Google Class. I get notifications on Google Classroom. I'm in a teacher classroom. Miss Kamenecki posts something. It says Sharon Kamenecki has posted whatever, right? Turn on those alerts. I know you got 4 classes, so depending on how frequently those other teachers post, you may get a lot of alerts. But when I post, transatlantic slave trade Mr. Swanson has posted. You're like, hey, he just posted our class from today. I post PowerPoint. I post if there's an attachment to be had, I'll post that. And I don't write a lot of extra words. I just post what we did in class. You were absent on yesterday. You reference Google Classroom. If you need a hard copy, that's great. Ask me for it. I'll give you a hard copy. But if you're wondering what we did on that day, if there's a video to post with it, I'll post that link. If there's a reason, so sometimes I video our class. That is so I can say, here's the Jamestown class. Check it out. How many of you actually watched that? I don't know, but the class is there. So that's Google Classroom. Syllabus you have, binder we've talked about. All right, I think we're ready to roll. Let's talk about Jamestown, the first permanent colony in America. This will be a conversation we can get through kind of rapidly, and then we'll pivot to a couple of review strategies based off of the week that we've had so far. Now, when I say first permanent colony, what does that imply? What does that suggest? Say it again. It's still a colony. I like that idea. Not quite what I was going for. It implies that there was an attempt earlier that failed. Jamestown was the first successful colony, but there was an attempt earlier that failed. And very often when I say, if at first you don't succeed, how would you finish that sentence? Skydiving is not for you. That's right. If at first you don't succeed, skydiving is not for you. But also try. Come on, that was funny, y'all. It's like this guy. But also try again. Okay. The first attempt at colonization in America was a colony called Roanoke. And it is very often called, this is not on your notes, but it's not on your fill in the blank notes, but those of you that want to write things down, by all means. Roanoke's often called the lost colony because it literally disappeared. These settlers leave England, they land in Roanoke is in North Carolina, present-day North Carolina. And by the time that the second group of settlers came over, there was just nothing left of Roanoke colony. There's a couple of scratches on the trees. There's a couple of outlines of maybe where they had a hut, but there's no graves, there's no bodies. Nobody really knows what happened to Roanoke colony. It's kind of one of the great mysteries in American history. I don't have the answer because nobody has the answer. Roanoke was a failure, but the English were determined to try again. So Roanoke is the first attempt. That's not what we're going to go in depth about today. We're going to talk about Jamestown. Here it is for you, kind of so you understand the map. Roanoke was in North Carolina. If you want to reference here, this is North Carolina. Jamestown lands more in Virginia, present-day Virginia. So we are talking about, the East Coast, pretty close to where we live right now. This is drive distance. Both of these are historic sites. You can kind of go and visit a museum at them. In fact, Mr. Mosley recently did visit Jamestown, the historic site. He got some pictures from it. Jamestown, named after, are you surprised, King James. King James was the king of England at the time, and he is the namesake of Jamestown. He had several reasons for wanting to go and colonize in the Americas. Kind of based off of what we talked about yesterday, what do you think some of those reasons for traveling might be? Land. Yeah, I want to plant my flag and have more land is exactly right. I heard the G word. Who said it? Felix, was it you? Gold. Yeah, they thought they might find gold in the New World. And here's another one. Competition. The Spanish, the country of Spain, the Spanish were involved in traveling into the New World. And by gosh, the King of England was not going to get beat out by the Spanish. Athletes, who's the rival? Like, who do we hate inside of our region? Appling, Jeff Davis. Everyone says Jeff Davis. It'd be like if Jeff Davis was colonizing in the Americas. By gosh, we're going to go colonize as well. Same thing, competition. So the King of England definitely wanted to get in the game in the New World. He wanted to prevent the Spanish from dominating the New World. So this is the why. This is why he started colonizing. So what happens is that he forms something called the Virginia Company. And if you're paying attention to the song, if you're able to catch the lyrics, I know sometimes it's hard to actually hear the lyrics in the song, but they're saying, for glory, God, and gold, and the Virginia Company. That opening scene of the movie Pocahontas is pretty accurate. I know it's animation, but it's pretty accurate because these guys are loading up their ship. They're going to go across the ocean. They're going to colonize. They land at Jamestown, right? Now, Pocahontas, the movie, definitely gets a lot of things wrong telling the story. It's Disney stuff, right? But that opening scene is pretty accurate because they are a part of the Virginia Company. And what they did, April of 1607, about 125 settlers reach the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia, and they established the first permanent colony in America, which will be Jamestown. They do it on the banks of the James River. It's like James. They're just like trying to make the king proud of them, right? So what's up with all the Jameses? There's Jamestown, James River. It's because the settlers were naming all of these things after their king, which, Bacon County is named after a person as well. Coffee County is named after a person. So this is why all the James. If you ever wonder why all the Jameses, that's why all the James. What about Virginia? Does that make you curious? Who's Virginia named after? Break that word down. What word do you see in that? Say it.
Virgin.
Yeah, virgin. Virginia, the country, the state. Obviously, that's still a state to this day. Virginia was named after the Virgin Queen Elizabeth. Literally, the Virgin Queen Elizabeth. That's why it's almost as if to say this is a unfiltered, untouched new land that we're going to go after, right? So that's the name of it. That's the why. And as I referenced, this is that opening scene in Disney's Pocahontas. How many of you have seen the movie? All right, how many of you subscribe to Disney Plus and just binge all the shows all the time? I do. We do. The Swansons do, I should say. So this is the opening scene, right? They're singing their song. They're loading up their ship. And the fella in blonde, what's his name? As a character. Anybody? What's his name? Blonde hair guy. John Smith. Real historical figure. Now, this cartoon gets a lot of things wrong, but John Smith is a real historical figure that we're going to talk about as well. All right, so let's a little bit more about the Virginia Company, right? It's in the song. I told you it's historical, but it's also in the Disney movie. What is the Virginia Company? It's a joint stock company. Stocks, stock market, you guys familiar with that? People buy a small portion of a company. If the company does well, what do the stockholders get? Yeah, they make money. If the company does poorly, what happens to their investment? They lose money. People were buying stock in the Virginia Company. They wanted to make money. So this was not that, let's just go have an adventure. They wanted to go make money in the New World. A group of wealthy investors called shareholders, they're the ones who they have an investment here. They wanted to succeed. If it succeeds, they make money. And they wanted to turn a profit. Okay, so, spreading Christianity, no. Sense of adventure, yeah, maybe a little bit, but they wanted to make money. They wanted to claim land, find gold, and make money. So some of y'all finish in all the blanks, right? You guys see how this particular slides go when it's fill in the blank? If you were going to start this voyage, right? You're in Europe, the old world we kept talking about yesterday. You got to come across this big old drink of water called the Atlantic Ocean. How would you, hey Anthony, head up for me. How would you inspire people or convince people to get on your ship and go with you? What's that? One more time? Jail? Oh, that's creative thinking. Like, hey, if you're a convict, you can start your life over by get out of jail, go on the adventure. I like that idea, Christian. That's not something that happened, but that is a very good idea. Money, yeah. Hey, are you interested in being rich? Come join our expedition, and you'll be rich with the rest of us. Hey, if you don't have anything better to do, here's a job for you. Come be a deckhand on my ship, and we're going to go to the New World. That's right. They actually took out advertisements, right? They would say, wanted, strong men, sense of adventure, let's go get rich together, journey to the New World. So that is how they convinced people to go, even though it would be dangerous, even though it was unknown. That's how they convinced people to go. And people seeking economic opportunities. And they said, you can expect wealth from gold and also other precious metals or minerals, the spices, right? That's what they were seeking to get. So that's how they convinced people to go. How many people do you think signed up for this? A lot or not a lot? Get mixed reviews here. About 105. About 105 people were on this very first voyage. I'm going to move slides. So the voyage to the New World in December of 1606. So this is our first class in the story of us. We talked about the transatlantic slave trade, and now we're actually talking about landing in America. December of 1606, that's when our story starts. About 105 settlers, business people, entrepreneurs, the word up there, set out for America, and they arrived in Virginia in April of 1607. So it is think about that timing. They set off in December. Cold, frigid, right? Might not sound like the best time for a cruise, but they knew how long it was going to take, and they wanted to land at their destination in the spring, which they did. They landed in April of 1607. So they should have had the spring and the summer, and even the beginning of fall. That's good weather to get ready for the winter time. That should have been what they had. We'll see how it works out for them, though. So hang on to that one. That name right there, Edward Wingfield, not one of our big names we're going to memorize, but here's what I can give to you. They had an elected government, okay? They had a small way to take care of each other with an actual elected president and a governing council. Maybe not the best of leaders, because he doesn't go down as a famous person in history. We actually see where there's some failures along the way as well. But they are rooted in having a sense of government. It isn't just every man for themselves. They do have an organized government. That's pretty notable. All right, at this point, go ahead and pull back out your journal entry. Okay, pull out that gray sheet of paper. And I want you to talk to your shoulder partner. Everybody has a shoulder partner. Tell them what 5 jobs you wrote down. And we're gonna, in just a second, we're gonna look at what occupations actually got on this ship. So you're starting a brand new colony. You've written your answers. Share with your partner. Are they the same? Are they different? Farmer over here. Are you guys identical thinkers? Let's see what you say. Tell Anthony. Right now, any job? Yes. Well, technically you can. All right, if you're done with your shoulder partner, and this is pretty easy, if you're done with shoulder partner, do now the front back. Do your, turn around and do front back, and I understand that. Just turn your body, talk to Lexi, turn your body, talk to Andy. You all talk to each other. Share with one more partner, right? You're coming up with different ideas. You don't all think the same. I get probably different ideas. I got Barbie. I got talking about after this show, pretty much and then you do construction work at a build houses. He's talking about like once they get on board. I thought that was all right. So good question. When we get there, What do we need to establish a new colony, right? That was the question. All right, bring it back up front. Now, all right, as you bring it back up front, now you probably see how the class flows. I'm gonna have you chat with each other. Then of course, we're also gonna share up front, see what our group consensus was. So, what's one of the jobs that you and your partners talked about? A doctor. All right, let's do one at a time here. A doctor. Knox. Why would a doctor be important to a new colony? Hey, people gonna get sick. Medical professional. You don't just get that knowledge overnight. You need to be someone who studied medicine. Probably pretty smart to take a doctor with you. I'll agree with that one. Travion, I think you had something to say. What is that? Craftsman. What? Okay, a craftsman. That's kind of a term for someone that builds something. What type of building in particular do we need? So we're gonna need houses. He said houses. When we land, guys, we're landing on nothing. We're landing on God's green earth. So we need to build houses. We need to cut down trees, make them into boards, and we need to build houses. It's springtime right now. We may be able to pitch a tent for a couple of months, but the winter's coming. We need some craftsmen. I like that. What else?
A farmer.
Farmer, why?
We gotta eat food.
Exactly right. She's exactly right. And same thing, it's the springtime. It's time to plant because that stuff doesn't grow overnight. We need to plant now, grow, harvest, have food for the winter. We need us some farmers. What else? Huh? Hunters. Hunters, right? So growing from the ground, that's grains, vegetables, that's important for your diet, and so is meat. And I will say a key has been all about let's just eat the rats, right? Let's just eat, so that's kind of like a hunter, right? Yeah, hunters. Let's see here. We're landing in a new territory. It's not our own. There are probably other people around. I don't know what kind of people they are. What do we need to keep ourselves safe? Soldiers, or we might say we're policemen. It's kind of a modern day occupation. All right, you guys are on a pretty right track. I think you guys might be ready to settle a colony. Now let's see. Josiah, turn for me. Let's see who actually came across on this first voyage. You ready? Here's the occupations of the original Jamestown settlers. What stands out to you as the largest number? Gentlemen. What is a gentleman?
They're just like wealthy.
Yeah, those original investors who are wealthy, who have probably not done a whole lot of what in their life?
Manual labor.
Hard work, manual labor. Yeah. So the dominant occupation that comes over is the gentleman. We're talking top hat, bow ties. You think they got any calluses on their hands? Mia said it pretty well. They haven't done a lot of manual labor in their life. So this is going to be a problem. When most of your people expect the work to be done for them, this is going to be a problem. Now let's look at a couple of other jobs. What stands out to you? Laborers. Okay, there are a few, 12.
Barbers.
A barber. And let's hear this. At this time period, the barber usually also did a little bit of medicine. So your barber might have also been a bit of a medical professional. And there is a surgeon as well. What's the second one? Preacher. They brought along a preacher. Bricklayer, mason, those are laborers. A tailor. What's a tailor do? Clothing. Yep. Boys, I actually had to look this one up because of the spelling. This actually refers to young boys, B-O-Y-S. Old English spelling is just a little bit different. So there were a few youths that came along as well. How useful may they have been, depending on how strong they were or weren't.
I thought there was child labor during that time. So
Yeah, but still, an 8-year-old can still only do as much as an 8-year-old is strong for, right? Big takeaway here is they did not bring really the right people. I don't see any soldiers. I don't see any farmers. And I see 29 knuckleheads who are not really interested in doing hard work. So this is going to lead to some problems. Let's see what kind of problems it leads to. Now, first of all, let's talk about where they actually landed. World historians, Keck Academy, my class, whenever we went through a civilization, we talked about it through a particular acronym. Do you remember that acronym? And it was a fruit. What? Anybody?
Grapes.
There it is, grapes. We did the grapes of civilizations. What was the G?
What the hell?
We're going to spot here.
God.
No.
Geography.
Geography, that's right. We're not gonna do the full grapes here, but geography, the geography matters, okay? That's a little bit of a refresher. Let's talk about where the island actually is. So this is a broad view picture. Let me zoom in a little bit. Jamestown itself was actually on an island, right? It was actually an island, and it had a couple of features that were notable. So let's look at some of those. It was inland, far enough inland to hide from the Spanish. Remember, the Spanish is kind of also dominant in colonizing this area. It was inland from the water routes, far enough from the shore that if the Spanish were just sailing by, they probably wouldn't see the settlement just with their naked eyes. That's important. It was deep water, which is important for anchoring your ships. So I'm not much of a ship guy, but you got to anchor your ship. You need a deep water in the harbor. That's significant. And then also, you can kind of see there's different inlets and river runoff and foliage. It was kind of swampy, and the river offered protection from the natives that were there, the Native Americans. So big focus on protection against the Spanish, protection against the Native Americans, and then being able to anchor their ships right there. That was also important. So the geography was selected on purpose. And of course, that is going to shape the future. Where you land, and where you start building is going to shape a lot of things. Let's talk about who they ran into. The natives. So the natives were called the Powhatan Indians. About 14,000 Powhatan Indians were in this area. Remember how many settlers were there? 105. So 14,000 natives, 105, new people showing up. A little bit outnumbered, to say the least, and that could lead to some conflict as well. And the tribe is called Powhatan, and the chief's name is also the same. Chief Powhatan, his daughter was the famous Pocahontas. So she really was a princess. Okay, she's the chief's daughter. She really was a person. She lived in Jamestown. Now the Disney movie adds a whole lot to the story and makes it inaccurate in a lot of ways. But the person, Pocahontas, the person, really was a true person who lived and was a part of American history. This is a painting, okay? So we're not at the time where we have photography yet, right? When we get there, we're going to start looking at a lot of photographs. But right now, for this time period in history, we still got to look at paintings, sketchings, and such like that. This painting, so the man with the club, that's Chief Powhatan. The man with his head on the rock. Anyone take a guess who that is? That is John Smith. And then the girl in the middle, who is she? This is Pocahontas. This is a scene out of the movie Pocahontas. So for those of you who harken back to your childhood, what's going on here? Like, what happens here? Yeah, it is said that John Smith was captured. Since he was a white man, since he was seen as an invader, he was going to be executed, right? Pretty normal for the Indian tribe to protect themselves and execute anyone who they see as an adversary. Well, Pocahontas, she plays a really important role here in bringing peace between the two groups. It is said that she steps between her father, who's about to smash John Smith's skull, and she says, "No, father, no, you can't kill him." Now, whether it exactly happened like that or not, we'll never know. Okay, it's not written down exactly like that. It kind of turns into a legend. In fact, a lot of historians think John Smith kind of embellished that story. Either way, it is true that Pocahontas played a role in uniting the white men and the natives, and that's pretty significant to keeping the peace between the two groups here. So, said Powhatan, he's the chief of the Powhatan Confederacy, father to Pocahontas. At the time of the English settlement, he became a friend to both John Smith and John Rolfe. I don't know if that's on your notes. Is it? You guys need to write that down? All right. No. Moving on from there. Now, this picture leads to this animation, right? Disney's Pocahontas. So, let's compare. Did Disney get it right, or did Disney do what Disney does and make it super animated, right? Look at this gal right here. Look at this Pocahontas. Take a guess as to, in your opinion, what age do you think this character is?
Like 18.
I hear 18, 20, 16, 30s, right? Pocahontas in history was born in 1595. John Smith and his settlers, we're going to do some math here. Did you know this was math class? John Smith and his settlers land in 1607. So this story is developing in the year 1607. How old was Pocahontas? 12. And she's 12 years old. So Disney. And furthermore, she never had a romantic relationship with John Smith. Nothing anywhere in history, no journal entries, nothing suggests that they had a romantic relationship. She has a different husband, I'll tell you about in just a second, but not John Smith. So Disney got it wrong there. Disney definitely got it wrong there for sure. To show you that picture again, I've already said both of these. So no matter what happens, I'll always be with you forever. Not true. She doesn't marry John Smith. That is a definite Disney inaccuracy. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the true Powhatan. And let's think here. Think about these 105 white people. They have their ship. They have their guns. They have their armor. They're coming into this land that the Indians have always seen as their own land. What potential sources of conflict do we have between these two people groups? Fight, yeah, definitely some fighting. This is a sketching, again, no photography, but this is a sketching of what the Powhatan might have looked like, dressed like. So not as Disneyfied, right? There's definitely be sources of fighting. What would some of those sources be? What kind of conflicts do you have with people around you? How about territorial conflicts? Hey, that's my backyard, or hey, that's my parking space. How about ever bump heads based on religion? I believe this versus somebody else believes something different. Right? Like Christians and Muslims have been fighting for years, whether that's you or not. Those religious groups have been fighting. Those are some things that they're going to have conflict with here as well. Here's a real simple one. I always kind of chuckle at this one, but it's a little more. It's pretty significant. The Indians shaved their faces and bathed every day. The Europeans had big bushy beards and in fact had really terrible hygiene. So the Indians saw themselves, the word used for Indians a lot of times is savages. They're savages. The Indians were actually more put together and cleaner and healthier than the Europeans. The Europeans wouldn't shave, wouldn't bathe, stinky. So that was a source of conflict. Isn't that interesting that would be a source of conflict? Here's another one. The Indians believe in communal land ownership. Nobody really has their own land, right? This is not your territory versus my territory, your backyard, my backyard. They don't have any fences. They just all own the land. Well, what's the European idea of land? Mine, right? I put up a fence. You stay away. I'm gonna fight you if you cross this line. Very, very, very different. And then think about the Europeans coming in and just claiming this island. The Indians are going to be like, that's everybody's island, right? And here's one more. Anthony, stand up for me. That's two. Religious differences. The Indians believed in very spiritual and many gods, which would be called polytheism. Don't remember that word? Belief in multi-gods. Whereas the Europeans were Christian, Catholic, and the Bible and Jesus. So, there's a big difference there. This is going to lead to a variety of conflicts. I pulled this little clip out of the movie Pocahontas. The fellow on the right, he is definitely one of those gentlemen, right? Really, both of these characters are the gentlemen who are not going to be doing any labor. And the question here says, why do you think, I got to wait for it, why do you think those inherent heathens attacked us? Why do you think they attacked us? Because we invaded their land and cut down their trees and dug up their earth? Maybe that's why they attacked us, because we came in and just took everything like it was ours. Kind of cuts deep, right? It's funny, it's a cartoon, but that movie kind of makes a big point right there as well. All right, moving on a little bit more. So the fort. One of the first things the European did, and on your notes, I'm going to ask you to sketch this fort. I'll show you a picture in just a second. One of the first things the Europeans did, the Englishmen did, was build a fort. Well, remember what I just said about Indian communal land? Look at the picture here. What's going up in the background? A fence, a wall. What is at the top of each log? Can you tell?
What do you think?
Yeah, it's sharpened. So it's a defensive kind of a thing. It's a military thing. I'll show you this next picture now. This is what the fort looked like. And in that space at the bottom of your page, go ahead and sketch this. Go ahead and sketch this. What shape am I looking at? It's triangle. Why do you think that the Europeans would have built a triangular fort? A little bit of a military thing here. Try to think, if you're defending an area, why is a triangle better than a square?
There's less sides.
Exactly right. Mia said exactly, less sides. From a military perspective, and I can say this, that's true. It's easier to defend 3 sides than 4. It takes fewer people to defend 3 sides than 4. So it's an interesting, some people think that's very unique shape. So it had a very important purpose to it. You're defending only 3 sides instead of 4. And in fact, even long into the future, forts are still built out in a triangular shape. A lot of rugged forts military bases in Vietnam were shaped as a triangle. I can speak from my time in Afghanistan. A lot of our patrol-based forts were shaped in a triangular shape. It's easier to defend 3 sides than 4. Now there are these cutouts, and that's kind of like for a forward-looking guard or something like that. But generally speaking, it's a triangular shaped fort. So I'll give you a second to kind of sketch that. This is one of the first things they did. They got off the boat and they started building a fort. And as you can imagine, the Indians would be like, why are they taking part of our land? That land belongs to everybody. Why are they taking part of our land? Just give you a second to sketch that fort. Triangular and thumb shape. All right, so we have arrived. We have a council, right? We have an elected president, but I kind of told you, we don't remember his name in history very much. He must have not have been very effective. We've arrived in April. What should have we started doing with our time? Farming. We should have dug into that dirt right away. But have you ever gotten to your vacation spot, whether it's the beach or the mountains or whatever you said your vacation spot was? You get to your hotel, the place you're staying, what's the first thing you want to do? Explore, that's right. So what do you think they did with their time right away? Started exploring, and what were they looking for? They're looking for the gold, right? Let's start digging for gold. Crops, who wants to plant food? Let's find some gold. So this is going to be a problem because, the winter is coming. I'm going to move slides now. If you haven't sketched your board, you can just keep going with the triangle. It's going to lead us to this time called the starving time. And as you can tell from the painting there, it was a time when many of these first settlers died. Not everyone survived this first winter. So the starving time, part of it was because many of these gentlemen were accustomed to hard work. Believe it or not, it's hard for me to believe. If I'm hungry and my life is on the line, I'm gonna start figuring out how to find some food. Many of these gentlemen were raised in a way that work was beneath them. They were gonna tell other people to do work for them. But in the end, how'd that work out for them? They didn't have any food to eat, right? So because these gentlemen were accustomed to work, not a lot of labor was done. They weren't ready for a harsh winter. They didn't come from harsh winters. They weren't prepared for the harsh winter. And just like we said, too much time was spent searching for gold and riches versus getting ready for the first winter, being ready to survive that first winter. This leads to this time called the starving time. And, just another picture is very, many gravestone crosses were put into the ground during this time. In fact, here's the big 3 reasons why. 1, disease from the infected river. You might think you want to put yourself next to the water. Let's have a source of water. But being a marsh, it was stagnant water and diseased. So disease from the river, that led to death. Hunger from not planting crops. We've said that several times. And then attacks from the local Native Americans, right? In these first several months, the natives are trying to figure out who just invaded our land, lots of attacks. And some of the white people died because of that as well. And it led to, in the end, about 45 of that 105 died. So darn near 40% of the original settlers died during the starving time. leads to a change in leadership. If what we have going on is not working out, what's the best thing to do? What's one of the first things you can do? Change leaders. Think about sports teams, right? You're not headed in the right direction, change coaches. Your school's not, a little stagnant or, it's even going downhill, change principals, change superintendent. Like as a leader, I'm a leader in the Army. I've studied leadership a lot. One of the first things you can do to try to change your trajectory is to change leaders. That's exactly what they do. This is where John Smith comes to the rescue. This is real John Smith, okay? Not the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, good-looking guy. This is real John Smith. John Smith, we told the story where he was supposedly saved by Pocahontas, right? I already laid that one down. He takes leadership of the colony, and he says something that is very foundational, changes the trajectory of the whole colony. He says this, "He that will not work shall not eat." If you're not going to get your hands dirty, if you're not going to plant a row of crops, if you're not going to build your own structure, he that will not work shall not eat. Has any of your adult leaders in your life, parents, grandparents, ever said that to you? If you don't get to work, you're not going to get dinner. You better finish your chores and then come down to eat. Anybody ever said that? Any of your parents ever said, let's say you got a graduated sibling in the house? All right, you better get off his butt and get to work or else he's not going to have anything to eat. Anybody ever said that? It's a truism, all right? And it changed Jamestown. John Smith came in. He said, I'm in charge now, and if you're not going to work, you're not going to eat. Now, that might sound like a familiar phrase for another reason as well, and that is because it is literally a verse out of the Christian Bible. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10, if anyone will not work, neither shall he eat. I think that shows John Smith was well versed in Christian scriptures. And that's just true. All right. That doesn't say anything about Jesus. That doesn't say anything about salvation. That's just good advice. I think it kind of shows that the white man's scriptures led to this change in attitude. He that shall not work shall not eat. Comes right out of the Bible. Leads to help arrives. Help arrives. Everything we've talked about so far has been that first ship. 105 people, brave souls came across the ocean. Let's try something new. Maybe we'll get rich. Maybe we'll die. Who knows? And a lot of them died. Finally, help arrives when about only 60 colonists were still alive. So like I said, about 45 of them died. The next round of settlers came. 2 ships from England came with more people and more supplies. They made it. Those who made it through the first winter, now they kind of had a chance to really establish the colony. Okay, we made it through one winter. Now we can really try to become a permanent colony, and that happened when the second group of settlers finally arrived. So maybe you think we have a chance now? Maybe Jamestown has a chance. Well, now that we figured out how to build structures and how to plant food, now we're going to actually try to find that money stuff, right? Now we're going to try to find rich. They didn't know it. These Europeans didn't know it. They thought that they were going to find gold. Instead, what they found was, I guess it's green gold. Because what is this first cash crop?
Tobacco.
Talked about it yesterday, tobacco. Not the gold that they thought they wanted, but it was the gold that the Virginia soil had for them, was this tobacco being able to be grown in this particular climate. So let's talk about tobacco a little bit, right? I don't like talking to 15-year-olds about tobacco all that often, but let's talk about tobacco in terms of our history real quick. So this is a picture of what is known as a smoking club, which was very popular in England at the time. Today, I'd say we have coffee shops, right? You go to a coffee shop, you're gonna get a cup of coffee, sit around, talk. It's more than just the coffee, you're hanging out, right? Well, smoking club. There's still cigar shops today, and it's still, you might say it's still a thing, but it's very popular for that upper class, the gentlemen back in England at this time. But difficulty was that the tobacco they had in England was very harsh. Now, I don't exactly know what harsh means, okay? That's the word that I read. Whenever I study history, it says it was harsh tobacco. I haven't smoked any tobacco, so I can't really give you a comparison. But what I read is that it was very, very smoky, very dark smoke, really burned the throat. It was not super desirable, but since it still kind of gave them that nicotine buzz and hit, it's something to do, people smoked it. Harsh, but people smoked it. Well, John Rolfe is a name you're going to need to know and remember. John Rolfe creates a smoother blend of tobacco. Smoother. Again, I don't exactly know what a smoother blend of tobacco is, but it was more desirable, more palatable. People could smoke it, not hack up a lung quite as hard. So John Rolfe, very important contribution to the colonies was that he engineered a smoother blend of tobacco. What he actually did was he took this kind of seed and that kind of seed, and he crossbreeded them together, and just like we do with fruit these days or dogs, whatever, he created a smoother blend of tobacco. And this blend of tobacco becomes very popular in England, and now people are willing to pay more money for it, and money makes the world go round. This is how tobacco changed the fate of Jamestown, because now we have this thing that, when you dig up gold, it's gone, right? You dug it up and it's not there anymore. But this stuff, you could grow it over and over and over. So it's almost like gold that would grow every single season. Tobacco is going to, of course, shape the face of the Southern economy for a long time to come. A little bit more about tobacco. Tobacco becomes a cash crop. What's the difference between a sustainable, a sustenance crop and a cash crop? Talk to me a little bit.
Don't they buy those?
Yeah, I think I heard several of you say it. Farming up to this point in history, you farmed what you needed for your family for a year. You planted enough corn to feed your family, enough potatoes to feed your family. You guys wanted some strawberries, you planted them just for you. You harvest all your stuff, you eat it, you're happy, you don't make money off of it, but you've had enough food for the year. That's what farming used to be. Well, now people are going to purposely plant enough to sell the extra. And that's what a cash crop is. It's enough, you plant enough to actually sell cash, right? That makes sense. And make some money off of it. These days, of course, let's say, almost everyone farms enough to sell. Very few people just farm enough only for themselves. But at the time, this is one of the very first crops that you would over harvest in order to sell the extra of it. Tobacco is a cash crop. And my next point is not working. On here anything. And I mentioned John Rolfe. John Rolfe, here's where the Disney universe and history collide one more time. Pocahontas was not romantically involved with John Smith, even though the movie kind of shows that was the way it was. Pocahontas, however, did marry John Rolfe. And that intermarriage actually brought a lot of peace between the English and the Native Americans. So here we have Pocahontas. Maybe she saved John Smith's life. Maybe that story is true, but she definitely married John Rolfe. We know this to be true. And that intermarriage is almost like saying, you're one clan and the other clan, and now we're all together. Now we're all connected because of this marriage. It brought about peace between these two groups, and that's pretty important. So let's Disneyfy one more time. Get your John straight. John Smith, yellow hair, blonde hair. He was not romantically involved with Pocahontas. He may have been rescued, like that story tells. He was not romantically involved. A lot of historians actually believe that he exaggerates his interactions with Pocahontas, trying to make himself, kind of more memorable for history. And would anybody ever do that? No, nobody would ever do that, right? A lot of historians believe he exaggerated. John Rolfe, on the other hand, and did you know there's a Pocahontas 2? I didn't know that until I got till we got into Disney Plus, and you can go through all the movies on Disney Plus. There's a Pocahontas 2. It did not go to movie theaters, went straight to VHS, which, if y'all know what that is. And the picture on the bottom, cartoon picture, that's John Rolfe. In Pocahontas 2, Pocahontas is married to John Rolfe. So it's almost like Disney didn't get it right the first time, but they did get it right the second time when she marries John Rolfe. A little bit more about the real Pocahontas, right? Because if you get sucked into the Disney story, you're going to not know the truth. I like to know the truth. Not talking about her. You want to see a picture of real Pocahontas? Now, it's not a photograph. It is a sketch. But this is what real Pocahontas might have looked like. Yeah. Now, she leaves Jamestown with John Rolfe. What stands out to you? Her eyes, yeah, she looks old. I think she looks kind of old in this picture. She looks very British, right? She's got on clothing that is not native, it is very English. That's because she traveled. She traveled to Europe. Yep, she traveled to Europe, and she actually even takes on a European name. And you can see it right here in this picture, Rebecca. She takes on the name Rebecca. Why would she do that? Try to fit in is right. Yeah, I'm gonna try to show that I'm not a savage, right? They think that Native Americans are savages, walk around in with our undergarments on and eat raw meat. I'm gonna try to show that I'm not a savage. So she even took on an English name, Rebecca. She and John Rolfe, they have one child together, and then they travel back. They get on a ship to travel back to Jamestown. They're gonna come back to the Americas. And unfortunately, on this ship, on this journey, Pocahontas dies. She dies of illness in 1617. So do the math. I told you she was born in 1595, dies in 1617. How old was she? 22. 22. So I don't think that looks like a 22-year-old, right? That looks like a really old lady to me. Pocahontas dies when she's 22. So pretty significant life for dying so young, right? She died at a relatively young age overall, 22. So that's the real Pocahontas. That's extra. Okay, that's not a part of our Georgia standards, but I don't just stick with those. I like to teach you guys a lot about life. All right, let's drive to the finish line here. So labor arrives. Tobacco was a very labor-intensive crop. Okay, it required a lot of watering, a lot of hoeing, a lot of pruning of the leaves and all that kind of stuff. Very labor-intensive crop. Well, there weren't a whole lot of settlers yet. We're going to need more labor. Furthermore, remember a lot of these settlers were the gentlemen who didn't want to do the hard labor. So what we have here is a labor force comes over called indentured servants. What do you know, before I describe it, what do you know about indentured servants? That process. Have you heard about it before? What is the process of indentured servants? Not quite sure. So it's different than slavery. Okay, it is not the same thing. But think about it like this. Someone who's in England but is poor, right? Does not have enough money to travel. They can't buy a ticket on a ship. They definitely can't pay for a house and food once they get here. They're poor. But they want to go. Well, they would get connected to a rich family. That richer family would pay for their ticket, pay for their food, and even house them once they got here. In exchange for what? Work. Yeah. Usually 7 years was the agreement, but that could be different from person to person. Usually an indentured servant said, I will be your house servant for 7 years in exchange for you paying for me to come over. And a lot of people did that. A lot of people took up on that deal. It was different than slavery. Okay, it wasn't bondage, it wasn't whipping, it wasn't the bad parts of the slave trade, but it was still servitude in a way. A lot of indentured servants contributed to the colony in the early days. They were the farmers, they were the house servants, all that kind of stuff. And then, unfortunately, there's not enough indentured servants to keep it going. So eventually, increase in labor demand does lead to slaves and slavery in the Americas, which kind of brings us right to where we left off yesterday, the year 1619. Do you remember the day? It's coming up in this month. August 20th. Yeah, that's not a super important date, but I'm glad you remember. August 20th, 1619 is the day that the first slaves, African slaves, arrived in the Americas at Jamestown, Virginia, and this is the beginning of slavery in America. Conversation we had yesterday is a pretty sad starting point to the story of us. And of course, we're going to be dealing with slavery for about the next 250 or so years. Big reason was tobacco, right? If you want to come back down to the reason, it was tobacco that brought slaves and the labor force in the first place. All right, one more big component here. This is important, and it's a part of Virginia history. Is government. Virginia, Jamestown being the first colony, Virginia is the state, of course. They figured they had to be able to make laws for themselves, right? It can't be Lord of the Flies. It can't just be every man for themselves. We need an organized system of government. The House of Burgesses is basically the first Congress in the United States. Now today, of course, we have our federal government, the United States Congress, but the House of Burgesses was established in 1619 so that colonists could make their own laws. Same year as the slaves arriving, that's not exactly connected, it just happens to be the same year. And this becomes the first representative government in America. Democracy. This is the first democracy where people can vote and have their voice be heard. Now, world historians, all of you come through world history, what was the first representative democracy in world history? What civilization had that? Greeks. That's right. Athens and Greece have representative democracy. So this is going to become a big part of America. This is what's going to set us apart from other countries in the world, and it also has its roots in Greece. So we have land, we have a crop, we have a labor force, we have a government. You know what we don't have yet in Jamestown? You know what we don't have yet? Women. Women arrive in Jamestown in 1620. So think about it, from 1607 all the way up to 1620, how many years is that? Quick math, 13 years. 13 years this colony was established with only men. And I find this to be very interesting. I think this is a great way to look at it. History and historians say that Jamestown became a permanent colony when women arrived. If it's just a bunch of men trying to make it happen, it was still an experiment. We're not sure if it's going to work. But when women arrived, now you can have families, now you can procreate, now you can grow. This is what made Jamestown a permanent colony. So power to you, ladies. It wasn't a permanent colony until the women arrived. Round it out with this, and keep your notes out. Trust me, keep your notes out. Round it out with this. This is how it started. You know that trend, how it started, how it's going? This is how it started. This is just the triangular fort, nothing else off in the distance. This is 1607. And then 1620, this was Jamestown in 1620. So you still see the triangle fort. What else do we see now? Houses.
Trees.
Trees. Well, plots of farmland. They actually cleared land. There's plots of farmland. I almost see like city blocks, right? Kind of see squares with roads that go, and even all the way to the far edge of the river. So how it started, how it's going, 13 years, this is how Jamestown grew. Here's what we're going to do next. I call this is to inspire you to always stay on track with your notes. This is an open notes quiz. Open notes, closed partner. Open notes, closed partner. You may use the notes you just took. And if you took good notes, no problem. So here's a quick quiz. Open notes, closed partner. Should not take you long. I'm not even going to give a time limit. And when we're done, I'll collect them, all right? May begin as soon as you get it. 4, 3, 4. You may begin.